Hey, what's up guys? JB here. It really hasn't been all that long, but we're back again here in War of the Visions Global with another mainline Final Fantasy collaborations this week, with fan favorite Final Fantasy IX set to join our game. Final Fantasy IX, for me, is definitely up there among some of my favorites in the series. It's always had a certain charm to it that has really held up over time. Now, I'm going to be kicking things off today with Dagger, otherwise known as Garnet. The WoTV art team has once again really nailed things from a design perspective here. I really do love the fusion here of the two styles of the games. Now this collab, it's actually still ongoing over in the JP side. They really haven't had it all that long. But we do know that Dagger will be our free initial get unit. She's going to be joining a stacked Earth element that recently just got Renoa. So how is this unit really going to be differentiating herself and making a case for you to build her? Well, let's dive in and take a look. So Dagger will be joining War of the Visions as a 90 cost Earth unit. She's going to be part of the Mace group. She has a base 3-1 movement and she wears hats and cloth. Starting with the TMR, this one provides a nullification of a few different status ailments of Poison, Petrified, and Toad, while also giving a boost of 15 AP. Now, Poison is definitely one of the top ailments out there at the moment. Petrify, it's extremely rare, although Vivi is going to have that one coming in on his kit. And Toad, now that the play of Halloween Lucia has dropped off a bit, isn't really seen all that much either. Now, the liberal targeting radius of this TMR, I do like that feature of it, but other than that, I would say this one is pretty niche, but something that maybe I can see being useful for some PvE situations. Now looking at Dagger's stats here, the overall picture I'd say is pretty ordinary, with a couple of exceptions. That magic value it's definitely among some of the best in the game. 416 base, and then that innate 651 value does have her within the top 5 of War of the Visions. Her crit evasion at 70 is also stellar. That's going to be amongst the top in the game as well. Aside from that though, not really a ton to write home about here. The dex and luck are both going to be middling values, leaving her accuracy woefully inadequate for the current state of the game. Her agility is also going to be a bit concerning here. She has no agility passives that can help boost that value up, so she's actually going to be coming in below average in that category as well. Overall, not entirely unexpected to have a mage with lower overall stats, but always good things to keep in mind and certainly can dictate how you want to build her. For mitigation, she is coming in with 0 defense and 6 spirit. Resistances, we have 5% against slash, 10% to strike, and then 15% against magic. She is actually our first unit in some time not to be weak against pierce damage, although she's really not far off there, just coming in at a neutral 0 value. She just has a single weakness here, but it is a big one. She does have a 15% weakness against missile. Now, we really haven't seen much of a missile meta in the game as of late. It's really been a minute, but certainly Summer Jaden out there, she's going to want to stay far, far away from him. Now for ailments, we do have a 50% against blinds. Kind of an odd choice, I think, considering how inaccurate of a unit this one is. She does have 50% to disable and 10% against charm. So those last two, certainly are nice, but not ones that we are seeing a ton in the meta. We do see them though from time to time. So unfortunately, she's not really covering any of the big status ailments that are out there at the moment. Things like poison, sleep, or paralyze. For her mastery ability, we do have a 5% magic and then a 10% flat damage magic reduction. This second one here definitely makes up for a lackluster first effect there, and it is going to stack nicely with that base spirit and as well as that nice base magic resistance that she has. Now, if you do take her all the way up to level 140, she's going to pick up that 20 crit evasion that I mentioned, as well as a 20% magic res penetration just to help her damage out there just a little bit. For recommended passives here for Dagger, her main job upgraded one I think is going to always be on for her. It's her only source of spirit penetration, but it does also give her a very big defensive boost. It's going to give her a bit more spirit, some area resist, as well as some elemental chain resist there for good measure. Now to stack along with that, I would highly recommend the cast time reduction. She'll need that for one of her spells in particular. It's one of her most important ones. Now she does have a couple of more options that you could look at maybe for some niche builds. You could heavily boost her spirit and lightning resistance, maybe to counter some specific things that you're seeing. Now for an actual counter ability, she does have an auto cure, which I think is probably the best one to use, but she does have the sword sorcerer sub job, and that will give her access to arrow guard, which you could use as an alternative, maybe in hedging against that natural missile weakness that she does have. Now moving on into her skills, and we're going to start off with her buffs. Her self buff is going to reduce her hate by 6. Still useful, even in this unit attack meta, as the majority of those attacks are actually select 2s. So at least in those cases, it's going to ensure that she's third on the priority list. Now, along with that hate reduction, this does come with a protect and shell buff. Still valuable tools that you can use, despite there being more ways to remove them these days. And speaking of that, her party buff actually does give her a way to do just that, as well as her allies, as it adds a dispel effect to your hit for 3 turns, which will remove both protect and shell. Now, there are a couple of notable elements out there. Earth is definitely one of them that really don't have great access to, units that can remove those. So this is definitely a nice utility that Dagger can add to your team. On top of that, the effect does give 40% magic as well as 20 spirit to Dagger herself. Now, I do have to say that despite bringing some decent utility there on this buff, when I do compare this one against some of the recent buffs that we've been seeing coming into the game, buffs that are bringing auras or special barriers and mitigations, this one does feel a little bit underwhelming here in comparison. Now, Dagger is actually one of the rare units that does have access to 3 different buffs in her main kit. So her third one here is actually going to provide 25 area resist, as well as a shell effect onto her ally, while also bestowing a re-raise effect onto herself. And she does actually get 2 uses of this one. Now, as we know, re-raise dispel is very much more common in the game than it used to be. However, they have recently added some counterplay against that recently with the new Helena unit, as well as Vivi, who we will be looking at here on the channel very, very soon. Now, moving into the main attack skills, her low AP attack is going to be a range 4 with the range height of 2. It's going to be coming in with that low 141% mod. Just a single effect here, and it's got a 25% chance to paralyze your target. Nothing I would say all that interesting here from an autoplay perspective. She really won't be using this one all that much, just in sort of finisher situations. However, this could be maybe a little bit more relevant in PvE or manual PvP situations. Her second skill here is going to be a range 4, again with the range height of 2. It's coming in with that large 185% modifier. Again, just a single effect on this one, but it is a pretty good one. This one has a courage dispel prior to the damage. Now, Earth notably really hasn't had a lot of great access to courage removal thus far. They do have quite a bit of re-raise removal, not so much for courage. So I do think that that's nice from that perspective. Still though, I think this skill is pretty, bare bones here, if I'm being frank, for the current meta. Now her third skill here, definitely the best one so far. This one's getting up to a range of 5 there on the diamond AoE with a potential range height of 3 there on the area of effect. This one has a large 220% modifier, and notice that this one is a non-elemental attack. This one has 1 effect post-damage, and it will debuff the spirit penetration of your targets by 30. So if you are a unit that is able to stack up high spirit like Dagger here can, this is a way that you can significantly increase her survivability, as well as any teammates who are able to do the same. Now, this ability does have a sequential effect there as well, and it will be an instant Cura, which is targetable at up to a range of 4 there on the cross AoE. Now, Cura is a 120x potency heal, so although she does have a high magic total, really don't expect an incredible amount of healing coming from this one unless you are able to really heavily invest into healing power for her. Now, the final ability here is the Limit Burst. This one's actually very, very similar to Resnick's Limit Burst. We have a large diamond, high potency heal effect here. This one will also dispel all debuffs prior to that heal hitting, meaning that any debuffs, including healing power down, will be washed away before that heal is applied. Incredibly strong mid-fight heal here. It will also provide a 10% all attack resist buff, meaning that your resistances to all damage types are going to be increased by 10. And this one actually will stack with individual typed resistance buffs. So if you had a slash resist or magic resist buff already applied, this one will just stack right on top of that. So overall here with the kit, there's definitely, a couple of things that I like, especially that final skill, that the diamond AoE, as well as that Limit Burst, I think kind of give her a little bit of identity out there on the battlefield with some access to some pretty nice mid-fight healing. Now, to augment this main kit, Dagger does have access to the Sword Sorcerer job, which was Sweetheart Miranda's job. That's going to give her access to some magical slashing attacks. Maybe could be interesting if you were pairing her up with Bradley or another slash attacker. She does also have Kododama, which will give her access to a magic barrier. It does also give her access to the unavailable pain skill, which would be her only 100% hit that she has access to anywhere in her kit. Now, in terms of her main job sub, that one will give her access to a castable healing spell as well. So I think there definitely are some unique reasons to use any of these 3 jobs, though I think in most cases I would probably go with Sword Sorcerer or with Kododama. Taking a look now at the Mace weapon class, like many others, slowly been building up a nice collection of cards. Now, culminating with these latest 2 Holovision cards that are coming in with the Final Fantasy IX collaboration, Mace is now going to have access to multiple options now for agility, unit resist, and area resistance. Now, there are 2 cards in particular which I think are going to be top tier choices for this group. That is going to start with the Great Demon card, which we already have, and then this new VV Vision card that's going to be coming along with this event. Now, for a more budget version, I think for area resist, you could certainly look to that Queen Mashiri Vision card. You are just going to be missing out at that point on that 50% magic bonus, which, as you can see, all of the units in this group are magic focused, so definitely would hurt from the offensive potential. Now, in terms of team building with this group, they do have access to their own tank with Raph if you were able to pick her up, and the majority of units within this group, they do offer some combination of support, healing, and damage. So overall, I think that the group does have some nice things going for it. I think that the one missing component for me, though, at least right now, is access to a primetime meta damage dealer. We do have a number of good ones here within the group, but really not any one great one. Aside from that, though, I think it's certainly primed for, when that new Mace damage dealer does drop, they'll be able to hit the ground running with a lot of nice options here within the group. Now, in terms of maybe branching out to another group and kind of mixing multiple jobs together, I think there's definitely a couple ways that you could look. None of them are completely developed just yet, I would say. But I do think those paths, at least for right now, would be the Knight group, kind of building around that Melnia and the Inherited Wills cards. But probably even better, once we do get the VV card, would be with the Black Mage group. Again, using that Great Demon and the VV cards that we talked about. And I think you could certainly find some nice damage dealers within, either of those groups. All right, guys, on to the mock builds here. And once again, I do have 2 builds here that we'll quickly look at. Now, build 1 is going to be a standard mono earth element. My goal here was to build around Dagger's strength and kind of build a magic bruising party. And for that, of course, I'm going to be bringing in Dialdo. Now, Bradley or Lucio probably wouldn't have been a great third here. To be frank, I'm just kind of sick of building with them, so I went for a different look here, and I'm going to be bringing in Noctis. Of course, he did just recently get his upgrades with the Pixel Remaster, and I think, amongst those collection of units, he's one of the few that I think still does carry a little bit of appeal here for our current game. Of course, there's a lot of magic going around in the meta right now, and magic bruising has certainly always been one of his strengths as well. And he's going to be providing that to our party here with that resist magic buff. Now, in terms of equipment here in the build, we're going to be using the new staff that comes along with the event for Dagger. It does give her some nice unique passives, including some magic up as well as some magic res penetration. Now, I'm going to be comboing that with the white marshmallow here. That's going to protect us from a bunch of status elements out there in the meta. Most noticeably, that's going to be sleep and poison, but it's also just going to give us a little bit of accuracy here as well. Now, the TMR, always build that towards the matchups or for agility tuning. In this case, though, I'm expecting to see a lot of light and dark magic teams out there, so I'm going to be using Ellen as TMR here to leverage that elemental resistance buff that it provides. And we're going to be able to layer that light and dark resist on top of the resist magic that Noctis is going to give us. Now, for the Esper here, I am going to be going with Bahamut. I'm going to be building that with magic resist and Man Eater. For the vision cards, we're going to have our unit resist, area resist, and agility covered by just 2 cards. That's going to be Dark Golem and the Eleficaris card. For a third, I'm going to be bringing in the Sheridan card there on Dagger, and that's just to increase the magic and overall accuracy here for the party. For the Trust Stones in the build, I'm going to be going with the Spirit set here on the left, not only to increase the healing power of her sequential ability, but also just getting a bit more raw spirit here in the build. With Dagger bringing us that spirit penetration debuff, every point of spirit that we can build up here is a bit more valuable than it would be otherwise. Now, for the Trust passives there on the left side, I am going to be heavily focused against that light magic team with the ones that I've chose here, but always tune those to the matchups that you're seeing out there. Now, Dagger's agility, really not all that great at all. Of course, we don't have any agility accessory here in the build, so in that case, an agility Trust Stone set here on the right is a must-have in my opinion. Now we do have several passives already covered on that unique weapon for Dagger, so I'm just kind of filling in some of the remaining ones here on this set. Now that slash res penetration may look a little bit out of place here, but I am going to be leveraging that sword sorcerer subjob that we talked about, so she is able to take advantage of that, when the time arises. All right, guys, second build is up here next. We're going to go through this one lightning quick because there are some similarities here to the first one. Now, this time we are going to be going for that job synergy, and I'm going to be going with that Mace Black Mage connection that we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago. So we're going to be bringing in Dagger, we're going to be bringing in Vivi, and we're going to be bringing in Raph there to tank for them. Now, Vivi is going to be our primetime damage dealer, while Dagger sort of chips in and brings the support there for our party as well. So just as I mentioned there in the job overview, we are going to be building around the cards of Great Demon and then Vivi's own card that does come along with him. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a unit resist job card to leverage here. However, we do still have that original Odin card that did come out in the first year of the game, and I'm going to be putting that there on Raph. Now, in global, we do have some limited bestows on that card that are unique to Raph, so you could certainly swap that placement around if you want to. Personally, for me in this build, I was going just for the higher magic stats there on Dagger. Now, in terms of equipment and trust stones and things, everything else in the build is pretty similar to the first one. I did go with Moore's TMR here in this build, and that one actually is going to help protect against both sleep and slow, so definitely another good option for that light matchup against Helena and Addison in particular. And I think it's an especially good option if you don't have access to that white marshmallow accessory. Now, another difference here that I will highlight, I am going to be using the Sheraton Esper here in this build. I do like it as another general use option. It does have 5 area resist there on the board that she's able to leverage. Now, the overall stats here in this build, it's going to be pretty similar to the last one. She's going to be right around 100 to 105 agility, right around 9,000 HP, 1,700 magic. So I think that's what we can come to expect for the majority of builds out there for this unit. Now, she's definitely much more focused on area resist as opposed to unit resist, as you can see here in the numbers. So definitely something to keep in mind, in terms of your team building and the matchups that you're choosing out there. So those are the 2 builds there, guys. As always, I'm going to put a link to these in the description below. Definitely check them out if you want to take a closer look. So what is my verdict today on Dagger? Starting with the positives, this is a unit that's going to be set up for relative success as a magic bruiser in the game, having access to strong magic resist, spirit, and also that innate 10% magic reduction that comes along with her mastery. She does also have access to a spirit penetration debuff that she can apply onto her enemies that can help prop up that mitigation even further. Dagger does also offer a nice combination of both damage and healing, including her limit burst with a high potency diamond heal for your team. And not only will it heal you up completely, but it will also cleanse any debuffs that have been applied to you as well. Perhaps the most interesting thing about her magic attacks is that none of them are reflectable, allowing her to naturally bypass both the reflect and runic statuses. Dagger does also bring a couple of nice buffs, including area resist, as well as some decent utility for removing protect and shell, as well as courage, all of which were much needed, especially within the earth elements. I think the Dagger projects to perform decently well against heavily magic-focused teams that are built around large area damage, or of course anything within the lightning elements. Now, on the more negative side, this is a unit that does have some stat deficiencies, extremely poor accuracy, as we noted. She only has the 1 sure hit in her Kododama subjob, and it's really not a very good one. As we saw in the builds, she's definitely a little bit hurting on the agility side as well, with no innate access to haste or CT up effects. I can see that becoming a liability for this unit, and a unit that may be easily lapped by some of the faster units out there. From a damage perspective, she's really not going to be lighting anyone up either, with access to just an average level of penetration and no innate breaks or imperils. Finally, she doesn't really have a great tertiary method of survival. She has her protect and shell buff. She has access to a barrier within her Kododama subjob if you choose to enable it, and then she does have her re-raise effect as well. I think in most cases, you're going to have to choose 2 out of those 3 options for most maps, especially on the smaller ones where you are quick to engage with the enemy. And not only that, she doesn't have access to any of these new barriers or special mitigations or auras that we've been seeing coming in on many of the newest units, meaning that if you are able to dispel her re-raise, she's not really going to be lasting as long as I think most people would like out there on the battlefield. At the end of the day, I think Dagger is a fine unit, certainly one that I will be building up as a free initial get, and is certainly as one of my favorite Final Fantasy IX characters. but I do see her as more of a role player, a niche counter, certainly someone that maybe you could throw out in a Magic meta, not unlike the one that we're in now, and she'll perform decent enough in those circumstances. But I really don't have any notion of her competing for a top meta spot, and I really don't think we're going to be seeing walls of Dagger out there anytime soon. There's just too many holes here to fill for such a widespread use in my view. So there it is, guys. That is my review today on Dagger. Like I said, certainly some things to like there from a kit perspective, but really not blowing me away by any means. Now, I did want to start my coverage here of Final Fantasy IX with this free unit, but I am excited to get to that next one shortly. We are going to be looking at Zidane next time. So now you guys know what I think. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions now. Do you agree with my takes here on Dagger today, or are you seeing something that I missed? Definitely hit me up in the comments down below and let me know. And while you're down there, if you enjoyed the video today, hit that like button for me. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all that I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.